All right, we are live for this month's Wager Warriors. So thank you to our special guests. I have Amanda Shaw and Dee Curry. They are trainers in the industry. This month we're celebrating Women's History Month. So what better way than to bring on some women trainers? So thank you both for joining me tonight.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Well, I guess let's get into it. Let's tell the audience a little bit about each of your guys' selves and then how you kind of got into the business. So Amanda, if you want to kick it off.
Yeah. So I'm Amanda Shaw. My great-grandfather trained horses. My grandfather trained horses. I started at the Meadows in 1963 when they opened. My mother is a trainer and driver. She was also. And I just had my trainer's license. I just got it in 2021, but I've done this since I was out of high school.
Dee, what about you?
So I'm a long timer then. I've been training horses for a little over 20 years. I have an unusual history. My mother was from England, and my great uncle rode for the Queen. They did a lot of steeplechase. My grandfather was a trainer. And as a child, I grew up in England and I rode horses. And in Southern England, instead of having bicycles, you had ponies. So I always was around. I was at Lambourn. I would see the training, didn't think anything of it. As time went on, moved to this country, still loved to ride. So anytime I was in school, high school, college break, I rode at farms for just to make some quick money, and it was easy and fun. And then as time went on, it was a job to go to right out of college until I decided what I was going to do. At one point, I was thinking about being a veterinarian. So I was, just kind of messing around with the horses, worked at the track, assistant trainer, the whole thing, worked your way up, galloped horses, the whole thing. Got at my trainer's license and was going to do it just for a few years. And was thinking about going back to school. And a very good friend of mine, out of the blue, he said, I want to invest in some racehorses, but I don't know anything about it. He knew how to gamble and he was a gambler. And I thought about it and thought, yeah, that'd be fun. Let's do it. So we, that new owner luck. The first year we were together, we bought like 5 horses out of the sale, babies. And 4 of them were like stakes placed. It was just one of those crazy things. And then the next thing you know, we're buying a mother of one of the babies out of the sale. And that mare had a baby that we called Cheeks and Peanuts. Him and his wife called Cheeks and Peanuts. She was the beginning of my whole career. I am now training her grandchildren. And all those babies they just went on and became stake horses. And he got involved with selling horses and keeping horses. And before we knew it, he has this big enterprise going in Kentucky. And I was just training horses. I always had about 20 head of horses my whole career. And all the family of this Cheeks and Peanuts, I was 3rd in the cotillion. I was, because the last filly of the line was by, a decent sire, and she was a freak and won like 7 in a row. So it was just something that just kind of all fell into place. And I really don't know how it happened, but I was lucky to be around just good people. And I still train for him. We've been together my whole career, which is unheard of. To have an owner stick with you that long is what makes you successful. We have such a good connection and a trust that I feel that's why we were successful all these years.
Oh, that's awesome. Now you both said you had to take your trainer's test. What made you decide to take your trainer's test, and what preparations did you have to do that? So Amanda, if you want to go ahead first.
I studied for a while, which the book was pretty much stuff I already knew. I'd done it for long enough since I was a kid, so it just comes natural at one point. But I was just, I owned horses, and just training was the next step for me. So.
Yeah, I agree. I was the same way. I galloped horses. I was an assistant trainer. It was because, I did all the baby steps to get to where I was. It was just the next step to take. And I didn't even think like being a woman, should I do it? It was just back, even when I was around, there was more women, I think, involved in the business. And it was just something I thought, yeah, it's my turn. I never even thought that being a woman would stop me. I think that's my personality. And it just came so easy to me. I broke horses, I galloped. I mean, I did everything in the business. So it was just the next step.
And you're both, what made you decide to stay? Like Amanda, you're from the Meadows, and Dee, you ended up at Parks. How did you kind of end up there?
I've always been here. When my family had moved back to this country, we were in New Jersey. So when I was working, it was convenient to be at Garden State or Philadelphia Park then. And it was just close to me. So, and all the big farms in New Jersey, there was, some big horse farms in New Jersey that aren't there anymore, that you could work there to learn before you went to the racetrack. So it was just location. It was just convenient. And then because, Parks is all year round, that was just very appealing to me.
Yep.
So I'm in the same boat. The Meadows is all year round. And like I said, my grandfather started there in 1963 when they opened. So, when your family's based there, we have a farm about 20 minutes from there, it's easier to stay there than it is to go somewhere and try to start all over again when you already have everything you need right there.
Yep, definitely. Now let's talk a little bit about your day-to-day operation and how many horses you have and what a day looks like for you guys. So Amanda, you can go ahead.
So I train about 8 right now myself. I also help my husband, so he has 24, so we have 32 together. We have 4 people that work for us as grooms, and then I have about 3 riders also. So we're getting to the track. My guys, they're supposed to be like 6:30. We start. Usually horses are on the track between 7 and 7:30. I have 2 kids, so I do have to put them on the bus. So I get there like between 8 and 8:30. My husband's normally there. We have a pretty good team right now. They do a good job. They take time. They care about the horses, which is important. We have the one kid that helps us a little bit here and there. He also drives for us, which is also nice because, he's invested too. He cares enough about them. Yeah, and that's which we race Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, starting at 12:47. Now we start. So, we're there, we race every day. We get home usually around 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. We also have some 4-H animals that my kids started doing. So that takes up our evenings. And we get up and do it all over again the next day.
Yeah, that's a 24/7 kind of job.
Yes.
Steve, what about you and your operation?
So I have always, like I said, I always had a lot of horses in the past. And now I've always had like 20 head. Now, after COVID, I just started cutting down, and now I have 8 myself. Just because I've been training for so many years, it's a lot easier. There's not as much help out there. I'm really fortunate that the help that I do have is really they're reliable, and they're they're my right hand. And we start early at the race at the thoroughbreds. We start early, and our track opens according to the daylight. Right now we're opening a little bit later, but we'll get the cold ones out first. So we're there at 4:30 in the morning, just getting the stalls done and getting everything prepped before we train. I like to get my cold ones out early before we start training, get them done and out of the way. And then I have an exercise rider that comes over, and we train how we're going to train for that day. And I have my hot walkers. Have a guy who does a lot of the stalls, and I do a lot of the hands-on myself. I'm always there with them when they train. I've never been a trainer that was home. I was always in the barn. I always wanted to see them, go to the track. And it just, makes for an early morning, but at least we have an early day if we're not racing. And here at Parks, we race Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. So, the weekends, if we have to ship or something, it frees up the weekends for the trainers and the jockeys to go to other tracks.
Yeah, see, that's nice. Now, since it's a Women's History Month, we want to touch on some women's stuff. Do you think it was harder to be a trainer in the business as a woman? And do you face any challenges, do you think, as being a woman? Amanda, you can go ahead.
I don't necessarily think right now that it is as hard as it maybe was for like my mom, like when she drove and stuff. I don't think that we, were treated any differently. I think we might have a different like outlook on, things that are happening with horses and things like that. But I don't, as far as like women being treated differently here. I don't see it. You know, I've never felt like we were treated differently because we were a woman.
Dee, did you face any challenges being a woman in the industry?
I think sometimes you're not taken as serious, in the beginning. I think people think women trainers, they do it because they just love horses, and, we take it serious. This is a business. I've got to say, I've been doing this a long time, and I've seen some of the women trainers out there and how hard they work. I feel like they have to work a little harder because there's so few of us that there's no room for failure, because we don't want, especially like myself, I don't want to be, well, that's just another woman trainer that did it that way. I want us to kind of, I think in anything where you're a minority, you feel like you need to be just a little bit better. I do believe, just from doing it all the years that I've done it, I think women trainers do train young horses really well. I think there is a connection with women trainers and young horses. I've seen it with my friends. I've seen it with just trainers out there, whether they have one young horse or a barn full of young horses. I think there is a connection with training young horses with women.
Yep. Now, do you typically keep your stable younger too, or do you train all ages and classes?
I always used to have a mix. You want your claiming horses to kind of match out your young horses, because it just keeps the flow going. It keeps you running while you're waiting, because everyone knows it takes a while for young horses to get to the races. Sometimes you're almost there and then you have to stop and send them to the farm. Today it is a little bit different because of the situation of having help in the barn. It's harder to have a bigger outfit to make that level of racing. But so because I started with young people, and the guy I've trained for my whole career is a breeder, I tend to try to do just young horses, and have the few claimers on the side just to keep my starts. But I train for a lot of PA. I bought babies from PA breeders. I train for PA breeders, and I don't want to lose that. So I do the best I can to try to keep the ball rolling, but I am a young horse trainer.
Amanda, what about you? Do you have all ages and classes, or do you prefer?
Yeah, at the moment we have some claimers. I have about what do we have? We have 10 babies, 4 Pennsylvania breds, 5 New York breds, and 1 Ohio bred. And I have some 3-year-olds coming back, but we have some age horses too. We don't really do as much claiming, but we had some starter allowance races here recently, so that was kind of out of the option. But now I think we'll get some claimers again. Yeah, but we race like aged horses and young horses. We race all the Pennsylvania fairs if we can. Race. We have a couple at a filly last year, 2-year-old sire stakes filly. She was pretty nice. She was New York bred, and then she's coming back. She just had her first start, so we're interested to see what she's going to do for us this year. Hopefully it's great. And we have some pretty nice babies that we're training down, so hopefully they come around, and they're looking good right now. So we'll see what happens for them too.
Now, as we talk about these babies and these 2-year-olds coming to be racehorses, do you guys have any stallions that are your favorite here in PA?
Wow, that's a good question. Every time I get a new stallion, I'm kind of excited about the ones that are here now. The guy that like I said, Griffin Investments, Jeff Bowen, he's always bred in Kentucky. He's bred some of the high-end horses in Kentucky. This year is the first year we're dropping a PA bred in a long time, in about 20 years. And it is a Kentucky stallion, but he's dropping in Pennsylvania. But we've been looking at some of the PA sires and really thinking about going towards some of them for next year.
Well, Amanda, what about you?
Right now we have a Captain Crunch colt, and he is a pretty nice colt. So he's probably at the moment like our favorite one. We haven't had our chance to get a Stay Hungry yet, but we're hoping to get one of them soon. And that's about it. We have a couple Hestons. They're not my favorite, but you always have those ones that are not your favorite.
Yes.
You gotta buy what you can afford.
Yeah.
No, we talked a little bit about owners. You've had an owner with you forever. Do you own yourself at all? And then how did you kind of get your owners?
I do own my own. I usually I'll claim something to run to keep my starts going, so to speak, but I do like to buy the babies. Marie Morrison, she's a breeder in PA, and I've been very lucky with her babies. The first one I ever bought off of her ended up being a 3-year-old of the year. And I have 2 from her now that I bought as yearlings. And I just, I've never had to really go looking for owners. They've come to me and asked me to train for them. Again, I had my main guy, and I was always going to train for him. And people had just come to me, and mostly to take their babies, to train some of their younger horses, the PA breds. And I've done quite well with young horses in my whole career.
Yep. Amanda, what about you? Do you guys own, and then do you have owners, and how do you get them or reach out to find owners?
Yeah, so we own some of them ourselves. My son owns a lot of them. He always has since he was about 6 months old, was his first one. And my daughter also owns a few. We have a guy with us from New York, Fortunate One. He's been with us for a while. And we were lucky enough this year to add a few new guys. So they just got into it. So we're hoping we do well for them too.
Oh, awesome. Now, what would you say is your favorite memory or biggest accomplishment in this industry? You can go first.
Let me go. So I've got to say, a horse named Keyline Baby, who was one of the babies of one of the first horses I trained, that was third in the cotillion, which is one of our bigger races here at Parks. And then the final filly out of that line, her name was Eighth Wonder. She was by Pioneer of the Nile. She took me all over. She won quite a few races, and now I'm training her babies. But I think my most memorable horse will always be a horse named Bethlehem Road. He was by Quality Road. He was one of my owners' high end, it's $100,000, a couple $100,000 stud fee, I think he was at the time, was supposed to go in the sale. And as a yearling, he came out of the field in Kentucky with his head completely wrapped around to his shoulder. They thought he broke his neck. And long story short, found out that he had a tumor in his ear, and he had a kind of a side of his ear that was paralyzed, and they didn't even know if he'd be a riding horse. So they sent him off I go to a guy named Dean Keller in South Carolina to break horses, and they just said, let's see if he'll be a riding horse. And he became better than a riding horse, and they started training him. And my owner at the time had some partners, which pretty much kept all his horses in Kentucky, but said, you better take this horse to Dee, because she's just going to be watching him a little bit closer in case that tumor comes back. So I took him. It was a long story getting him there. He had a flop eared. He was not real big, and he ended up winning his first 3 races. I was 4th in the Ohio Derby. And then I was invited to go to the Haskell. I was the 4th woman ever to be invited to go to the Haskell. We knew it was really a stretch. Did he want to go the distance? Did he want to hit those heavy hitters? But my owners wanted me to do it. As a female trainer, wanted me to go, wanted me to make that step. And we did. And the stories that were out about him, it was just like he had a fan base that was yelling his name because his story got out, and people came to the stall to see him, his flop-eared and his kind of funny looking body. And he was just so much fun, and he was so much fun to be around, that we ended up after the Haskell and a few races, the girl that worked for me really, really liked him, and ended up taking him home and just putting him in her backyard. They didn't want to drop him and put him in claiming prices and just let him go and win another race. They said, no, he's done enough. So she has him right now, and every once in a while sends me a picture, and that was special for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Amanda, what about you?
I have a couple fondest memories. My first win obviously was Only the Tough Survive, and my 2-year-old New York Sire Stakes filly win at Buffalo last year, a leg of that. So that was exciting, and that was a good memory. I am terrible at falling in love with all the horses. So I have a few favorites. Night Dreamer. I had to put him down. In a better place also. Just a few of them, that are your favorites that they just stick with you. He wasn't anything great, but he did enough. So those ones that you can always count on.
Those are the ones you remember the most. They just
Yes,
they
yeah.
had that personality. And
Yeah, he was one of them ones you always can count on no matter what. They always pull through, get you the checks, and they make it worth doing.
Definitely. I want to remind the audience that you can type in questions in the comments and we will answer them. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment and we'll get your questions answered. Now, Amanda, you talked a little bit about your first win. What was that like as a trainer getting your first win?
It was very exciting. Mike drove him for me. My daughter was able to be there. My husband was there. So that was a good moment. That was fun. That was very exciting.
Dee, do you remember your first training win?
I do. It was at Garden State Park and it was a snowstorm. And I was in a late race and I shipped him from the farm because I think at the time I only had about 5 horses. And when I shipped in, the rider didn't want to ride the horse. I think, I don't know why, probably because of the storm and wanted to leave. And a guy named Barrington Harvey, who people in the thoroughbred business probably go, I remember him. He was just one of those guys that would ride anything. And he's riding for this girl that nobody knew who she was. I came from a farm and it was the middle of a snowstorm. And he rode this filly and she won by like 5 lengths. And it was just so exciting. And I was hooked from then on.
Now, being a trainer, you have to decide where your horses go, what class they're going to race in. And Dee, for you, obviously turf or dirt. How do you kind of determine where your horse fits and where to put them and that sort of stuff?
Well, a lot of that stuff comes with my big owner, the one that breeds some of the high-end horses. We talk about it ahead of time. Is this going to be a brood mare? Is this a horse that, we are running, we have to run without a tag? If she doesn't have the talent, then she goes home and is bred. Or, which some of them will start that way. We know right off the bat because of their pedigree that their value. And then if they're not running any good, he's so well informed about lines and the broodmare sires and this and that. And it's sometimes he'll tell me, I'm not keeping this one, put her where you want. And we'll, drop her in. And if she gets claimed, then, oh, well, if she doesn't run any good, he's quick to say, you know what, just don't run her, retire her. He won't just like run them so cheap that you have to take them. He'll stop on them immediately and say, just find a better home for it, which I do like that. Most of my owners have always been that way, which helped me a lot sleep at night. I am able to quit on my horses early so they have another career in retirement. And that means a lot to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Amanda, how do you determine your horses, what class you're going to put them in? And you even have to determine your driver and things like that. So how do you go about that?
Yeah, which obviously we all start off in the maiden, and if they're not good enough, like it's easy just to put them down in class and let it go. Now you keep going through those ranks and you get to those condition claimers where you're not any good, so you got to go in like for 7 and for 10. You got to race your horse where it's competitive, otherwise just rip their hearts out and it's just not worth it. If they're not doing any good up in class, and sometimes the Meadows is a hard place to race at. It's pretty tough here. Sometimes just a different track is better. An easier track is better for them. Just get rid of them and move on. And like, there's plenty of options on gate we sell on often. Just better to find them a different place than to try to keep going and ripping their hearts out. Like, that's not worth it.
Yep. Now, I always think it's interesting, the thoroughbreds, you have a different routine compared to the standard breds. So you don't gallop them every day. Kind of, how does that work? How do you determine what days they're going to gallop, what day they're hot walking? And then Amanda, you can talk a little bit about what a standard bred does daily too, what their routine is.
So one thing with thoroughbreds, especially in the winter, you're kind of training according to the weather. And, like I like to walk, jog, gallop a few days, walks, jog. Again, you're watching the weather. And I train all my horses as individuals. And I'm able to do that with a smaller number. I know some of the bigger outfits, they have a routine that they train all their horses, and the horses kind of have to fit into their program. But I train all of mine as individuals, and some need to train harder than others. And they just kind of let you know.
Amanda, how does it work for the standardbreds?
So, we jog every day, they move every day, usually between 20 and 30 minutes. We usually train 2 days out from a race, sometimes 2 trips, depending on the animal. And sometimes they get, we go a decent speed with them every day, just for those like horses that tie up and things like that, that have other issues that we kind of watch for. But every day we don't jog on Sundays. That's not everybody gets a day off. So Sundays are our only day off, and they jog or train every other day.
Yeah. Now, for anyone in the industry, any women wanting to get into the business, what advice do you have? Dee, do you want to go first?
Well, just to be persistent, take it serious, and just rely on yourself. Listen to yourself. You can do this. I do know people are always going to want to tell you what to do and how to do it. And I think that's just the nature of the beast to just kind of tell the woman, how to do something. But be confident in yourself. Don't listen to anybody, and just do exactly what you've always wanted to do.
Amanda, what about
Yeah,
you?
like I think this business is a hard business, so you do have to be a little resilient. Sometimes your emotions get the best of you, so you gotta try to keep them in check. But just everybody does things different. So I don't feel like there's a right or wrong answer, and everything's always worth a shot. You never know unless you try it. It's worth a shot, whether somebody else does it or thinks you're crazy for doing it. Give it a try, because it might work out.
Yep. And Amanda, being a trainer, you also did a little driving too. So do you want to talk about that? You actually have a pretty good record. You made checks every time.
Yeah, so I had a nice little trotter. His name was Shockproof. I drove him at the fairs. I've only drove 4 times. Nothing too crazy, but I knew that he was good, and he was solid. He always stayed trotting. He was a nice little fair horse. I did win the first one, and I got some checks after that too. So it was fun. I don't think I'll do it forever, but those nice little trotters that you got to do, they're all right. It was fun.
I have a question. As a trainer, you can trot your own horse, right? Isn't that what they do with the trotters?
Yep. Like
you
I'll go
can
out
trot
there
your
and
own-
yep. Yeah, like I jog them every day myself. We always jog in
But
the
I-
cart. Yep. And I drove them myself in that race too. I had that option of the trainer driver, and yep, I got to drive him, and it was fun. It was a good time.
Neat. That's neat.
It's definitely a different experience being, what I mean? Like, I don't know, like I've only schooled one other time. So that was literally only my second time behind the gate. So I was quite a little nervous, but it was good. It was a good experience. Worth doing for sure.
Yeah.
Now, they have jockey agents in the thoroughbred industry. So do the agents reach out to you, or do you stick with a certain jockey?
Well, for most of my career, I stuck with a jockey named Jose Flores. And I actually knew him when I was a groom at Penn National. And I don't know if you know, but he passed away. He was the only rider to get killed at Parks Racetrack. It's been about 6 years now. So he was my rider. I always rode him. I had a good connection with him, just known him for so long. And after he passed away, which a lot of people don't know this, but I almost quit training. But after that, I just kind of was a little lost, because I always had that one guy to go to. And so now I just, being at the track for so long, I have, different friendships with different agents and the jockeys. We have a colony that's been there for years, and we kind of just, we all know each other, and ride them when you can. Some of the riders, they are tied up with some of the bigger outfits with more horses. So you understand when they can't ride your horse. But we have a lot of riders that we all know and trust. So I'm pretty confident that even if I can't get a rider that I wanted to get because he's tied up with somebody else, it's not hard to reach out and get another one.
Yep. Amanda, how does it work for drivers? You get to pick them, or?
Yeah, we pick our drivers. You can change them every week if you want to. I personally think like I have a few horses that some drivers don't get along with. So, and I do think it's important to change up your drivers because everybody's driving style is a little different. So like horses that have had the same driver for like 5-10 starts, I think they need like a different set of hands behind them because they all have a different style of driving. You know, sometimes they just don't get along with the animal.
Yeah.
T, do you
No.
think you have that with like your jockeys for your thoroughbreds too?
No,
Or
I don't. I mean, you can say, yeah, it's nice to change up, but like sometimes if the horse just isn't running for somebody. But in general, I think, we all use the same rider a few times. And, if I find that they're not fitting the horse for whatever reason, you'll change riders just sometimes just because it's just like, Murphy's Law, just change the rider and see what happens. But, I think a lot of the riders ride a lot the same. I'm sure it's very different than driving. I'm very confused with that. I don't even know where I would begin to drive a horse. And I've been riding, horses my whole life, but I could never get behind one. I wouldn't know what to do. So to me, that looks just so hard. So I don't know if it, being on their back to you looks difficult, but it's, but I don't know. I think sometimes like bug riders, you get to take the apprentice riders, you get to take the weight off. Sometimes that helps. Some of the journeymen just, they just know a little bit more. So you want their opinion. But in general, as long as you're comfortable with your rider and you have a good relationship with them, I think that's important because, even if they make a mistake, just come back and tell me so I can fix something or you can fix something. Whether, blinkers on, blinkers off, I heard a noise, we need a tongue tie, or man, I screwed up. I should have went to the outside and I tried to go to the inside. Okay, well now I know it wasn't a horse. I did my part. So let's try it again. And this time do your part,
Right. Yeah.
So.
You talked a little bit about equipment there. How do you determine what equipment the horses should wear?
Well, I'm fortunate because I was a gallop person for many, many years. So I am a trainer that rode, my whole life. And so it's easy for me now to change equipment because I've been there. I broke a lot of horses over the years when I was younger. And that's when you're, using new equipment with young horses. And I can kind of pick it right away. And if I can even see my exercise rider go by on a horse and I'll say something like, I'm changing the bit. And they're shocked that I know that, but it's because I've been there. And, it helps when your rider can tell you if your horse is, looking around, if they're making a noise and need a tongue tie or, but that's never been a problem with me. I think because I have so many years under me of riding horses.
Yep. Amanda, how do you determine what equipment your horses should wear?
Like something like the tongue tie for them, like we put on almost all of our horses wear a tongue tie. It's sometimes we even tie their tongue out if they have some breathing issues. So that's that. And we use head poles all the time, keeps them straight. Murphy blinds. Head poles are a little more severe than a Murphy. Knee boots, tenon boots. Head pole.
Yeah.
It's a big long and it hooks to the cabeston and it hooks to a spot on the harness and it helps to keep their head straight. Sometimes you use a line pole, which just has a ring and the line goes through it and it's that works. And Murphys just go on inside like the blind or on the outside. Yes. Yep. Yeah. Like the blinkers. Yep. Just help them. Sometimes we put holes in them. Sometimes we leave them closed. Yep. Yeah. Just like that. The head poles just keep them straight most of the time. It's not going to guarantee it. And then if that doesn't work, you start changing some bits and looking for some other issues.
Okay.
Now training is up and down and you never know if you're going to have a good month or a great month. How do you kind of keep when the bad times are bad, like keep wanting to go and still want to continue to train?
So I guess because I always tell people that are in the business, just even if you have a good time, just always put that money away. And so I've been always very fortunate. I've always put my money away. So it just kind of keeps, it makes up for the bad times or the slow times. And then something seems to always come around the corner to put you right back in that good time. So it's just going forward and just, saving your money, don't blow it. And I tell my people all the time, they ask me for financial advice. And, like when you buy horses, just don't blow all your money on one thing, pay your bills, make sure your mortgage is paid. and then spend some extra money on extra horses. And it's worked. Oh, sorry, it's my cat.
Yeah,
mean,
like I feel the same way, you know, it's again with that resilient, like you just got to keep going because you can be on top and then all of a sudden at the bottom within a couple days. It doesn't take long. Just got to push through, you know, bad luck happens, it always does, and keep going. You know, there's always like those horses that, you know, just get you checks, you know, you kind of rely on them a little bit because you know they're putting forth whatever they got for you.
Yep. We had one question about earplugs. So, Amanda, you can talk about how the standardbreds use earplugs and how they connect to the bike. And then Dee, you can tell us if you guys, do you use earplugs in the thoroughbred racing?
We do, but not that often. I actually had one horse I used earplugs for that I'm not even sure if it worked or not, but he seemed like noise was bothering him. So we used to put little fuzzy, they look like just little pom-poms, and we put them right in their ears. Sometimes they're hard to get out, but it's not something that we commonly do with the thoroughbreds.
You know,
Amanda?
how does your jockey pull them? The earplugs.
What do you mean?
Just
They
reach.
don't-
Oh, they don't
we-
pull them. You leave them in.
We leave them in, and then
Okay.
we take them out when the horse comes back to the barn. They're just little
Okay.
pom-poms. We literally like little cotton pom-pom looking
Yeah.
things.
Yeah,
We just
that's
stuff the ears. Yeah.
that's what ours are. Now we usually they go attached to the bridle, put them in their ears, down through the line that the ring where the lines are, and then back, and you hook them to the bike by the stirrup, and your driver is gonna pop them with their foot and pop them out of their ears, so it gives them a little more hearing, and like when those guys go to yell at them or horses are coming up on them, they can hear them and it makes them dig in a little more.
Okay, ours is the opposite. We want silence because they're too freaked out.
Want it.
So we put the
Okay.
pom-pom, we leave them in.
Are you guys allowed to pull them?
Well, no, we put them in the barn. You would put them
Yeah,
in the barn
and-
here. They
Okay.
go over, they race, they come back, and then we take
And
them out.
they stay in.
These thoroughbreds
Yeah.
are so more high strung than the
Yes,
standard
yeah,
spook because of noise and sight.
Yeah.
I think a lot more than standard breds. If I
yeah. Now we
Yeah.
use ear hoods a lot. Like if we usually race them in an ear hood and it
okay,
stays on the whole race. Normally they do have pull off hoods, but that's for like horses that really
Yeah.
need earplugs. But yeah, ours, we usually use hoods all the time. Like I jog all mine in hoods just to keep them calm. No point
Okay.
in going out there and running crazy for 30 minutes.
yeah, interesting.
Dee, we had someone say that you should come out to our harness track and sit behind them.
Absolutely. Come on down.
I would like to do that. You know, I did that one time as a child. I do remember doing one time as a child when I lived in Germany, and I would think that would be pretty fun. I would like
You're
to. try-
welcome at my barn anytime. Come on down.
Okay, I have to hook up because I'm fascinated now. Now you got me fascinated. I might be changing careers now.
It's not too different.
No.
Yeah, it's definitely cool to see the standardbred side to the thoroughbred side. Very interesting. But thank you both for joining us. We're gonna wrap up Wager Warriors. Thank you for participating in Women's History Month. So there's no better way than to bring two female trainers on here, and we're happy to have you. And thank you guys very much.
Well, thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me. Fun.
Yep.
Yep.
It was
good
nice
luck
meeting
with
you.
the racing.
Nice meeting you.
Good luck.